Now, the first group of those who refused to come to the king's wedding feast is described in verse 3. The king sends forth his servants to call them that were bidden to the wedding, and they would not come. Why didn't they come? They didn't come because they didn't want to come, which is ordinarily the reason why people don't come. They don't want to come. And this is precisely the text. They would not come. And in the English, they would not come could mean different things, but the Greek here for would is desire or wish or want. They did not desire to come. They didn't want to come, ergo, they didn't come. And this is always the way. Jesus said in John 5 verse 40, "And ye will not come to me, that ye might have life." And ye will not doesn't indicate future tense. You will not in the future come to me. Will not means you do not wish or want to come to me. You don't want to come, Jesus said to the crowd. You don't desire it. You're not interested. And here Jesus was stating that the problem is with man's will. You do not want to come, he said to them. This is Christ's evaluation of man's so-called free will without sovereign, irresistible grace. You take someone who's unregenerate, you do not want to come. You don't want to, therefore you don't believe. That's total depravity. You do not want to come to me, Jesus said. These people in Matthew 22 verse 3 did not want to come. So they didn't come to the wedding feast. This is precisely the way that it was with us before we were converted. We did not want it. This is the way it is with all those who are outside of Christ today. They don't want to come. Obviously. That's why they're not in church. That's why they don't believe. They don't want to come. Obviously. This is the case because unregenerate man does not want to repudiate his own righteousness. He does not want to confess that he's born in sin and he's shapen in iniquity, and that the only thing he has ever done in his life was sin. Continuously, all the time, as a rebel. Because he's deceived into thinking that there's some good in him. That is the original lie. I am good. No, you're not. Because there's none that doeth good. No, not one. He doesn't want to trust in the righteousness of Christ alone for all of his salvation. He doesn't want to come to the wedding feast of the Lamb. Then we have a second manner of refusal. Hearing of the first refusal, that these people don't want to come, it's as if the king can't quite believe that his invitation has been rejected. Well, perhaps these people didn't understand. Perhaps the messengers that I sent out weren't particularly good at presenting it to them. So he sends out other servants to explain things and make it really emphatic and clear. When you go out, you must tell them just how good the feast is. Tell them all about the fatted calf and the oxen, and, in gospel terms, what it is to be received as a son of the living God, what it is to be righteous, what the new world's like. Tell them what they're going to avoid too. Hell. Tell them that. And then tell them that now is the accepted time. That this isn't something you put off, but that all things are made ready. Come. Come now. Tell them that. Now they do. But the messengers tell them. Making it even clearer that the problem was not the lack of detailed information. The problem is the same problem at the very beginning. The total depravity of these people. They don't want to come. They don't want to be holy. They do not want Jesus Christ, because men love darkness rather than light, because their deeds are evil. Now it is that with the gospel truth and the gospel command pressed more clearly on the people, a second and a third and a fourth time, so to speak, their depravity reveals itself further. Verse 5 says, they made light of it. Salvation from sin and death, the knowledge of the true God, they made light of it. They esteemed it as nothing. The gospel command, come to the marriage, the urgency that all things are now ready, they thought light of it, they made light of it. And making light of it was for them, according to their circumstances, this one, well, my farm is more important than the kingdom of heaven. That's making light of it. Earthly meals are more important than the marriage supper of the Lamb. Caring for the livestock means a lot more to me than believing in the Lamb slain before the foundation of the world. And I've got crops to care for. That's far more concrete and essential than believing in Him who is the bread of life. That's to make light of it. That is to despise the gospel by reckoning it less important than your job or your food. For another, it's his business. Those who made light of it in verse 5 went their ways, one to his farm, another to his merchandise. And this guy thinks, because he's thoroughly carnal, it's more important that you've got money in your bank account than it is to have treasures in heaven. And this is the vast majority of people. Money, far more important to them than the salvation of their own soul. This is the wickedness and stupidity of fallen mankind. In response to Christ's ultimatum, you cannot serve God and mammon, they decide every time, mammon, mammon. That's the way it goes. That's the way it will always go with them, unless God gives them a new heart. Mammon wins, hands down. It's not even close. They made light of it. And of course, there are many other ways that a man or woman or young person can go preferring their ways to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And some of them are so pathetic that even us as foolish people can understand. TV. You get somebody and they're more interested in watching TV, even though probably in the next breath they'll say that much of it's rubbish anyway. Watching TV is more important to them than the Word of God. And if it's a choice between hearing the Word of God and a TV program, the TV program will win. What is God going to do with someone like that in the last day? TV beats the gospel of Christ. For some people it's sport. Golf, let's say. Or their friends. They'll even say it too. Well, at least in hell I'll see all my friends. It's thick darkness. You don't see anything there in hell. For others, they're engaged in unnecessary Sunday work. By unnecessary, I mean works that are not works of necessity or mercy. Therefore, they don't come under the gospel and they perish. All which things are idols. So you think, well, idols are rather rare things. I mean, there's no idols in this room, for instance. Where do you find idols? Well, maybe if you go to Burma and you see some statues, or you go to a chapel, you see idols.